According to Google Trends, content marketing and content strategy were hot search for terms last year in the United States alone. So clearly, we're all trying to get better at it. And I'm with you. At the end of the day, you need strong and impactful content to build your brand and stand out online. But I've also been feeling so bombarded and overwhelmed with just generic advice on boosting my online presence, and very few people are sharing an actual detailed roadmap that you can use to build your content strategy. So that's why today, pulling back the curtain and sharing my real-time strategy for Q1. Like, picture this. I have my Google Doc, I have a cup of coffee, and I'm breaking this down step by step. And the thing is, I've been known to be a little bit of an oversharer, so I'm spilling the beans, the strategy, and my secret weapons. And these are the people that have helped me refine my views on content. From story brand to social curator, the business lounge, and dash of wisdom from my not so secret weapon, my husband. We're going to navigate through defining your goals, crafting a messaging that speaks to your audience's soul, and a content plan that makes you focus and stay consistent. This episode, after I outlined it, ended up being a mini course, and I could not be more excited for you. But before we dive in, I want to tell you about my new free masterclass, 3 Secrets to Stand Out from the Crowd. Because content marketing is just a simple piece of the puzzle. Inside the class, I'll show you how to be seen as a go-to expert in your industry without being a slave to social media. That's so important. This class is for you if you are an entrepreneur who's ready to be seen, to be recognized as a reference in your industry. You already know how much knowledge, how much value you're bringing to the table, and you want to scale your reach and your impact to stop being that best kept secret in your industry. And that's why I'm here to show you exactly how you can make that happen. Join the class today by going to creatortoleader.com/masterclass. That's creatortoleader.com/masterclass. See you inside the class. Welcome to Creator to Leader. Are you struggling to connect with your ideal customers online? Are you confused about the most effective way to market your business? If you're ready to become the go-to expert in your industry and stand out from the crowd, this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm Eugenia. That's Eugenia in Spanish, but you can call me E. My mission is to help entrepreneurs stand out online so that they can grow their businesses. I do this through comprehensive marketing strategies, impactful content plans, and storytelling leadership. We both know you are running on caffeine and big dreams. So let's dive right in. The new quarter is here. So we have a bunch, 1,000 of podcast episodes, YouTube videos on how to grow on Instagram, how to get more podcast downloads, how to plan your content calendar, how to do this and that. But what I haven't seen online is a solid place that tells you how to build your strategy. I'm talking about taking a Google Doc where you can define your strategy and your tactics. Usually videos are very either big picture, just outline, not really a strategy, or very specific with the tactics. But they don't teach you how to build your strategy in a way that's simple, and you don't have to feel like you're building a corporate strategy for a 1,000 people company. Okay? I want to equip you with solid information that actually works because it has worked for me, it has worked for my clients, and it has worked for so many of my mentors, the ones I'm going to mention in a minute. And I have seen how it works not only for me, it works in general. This is not just theories or little hacks that are going to confuse you and overwhelm you. So I have this strategy, I have the Google Doc pulled up, and again, I don't want to just give you ideas. I really want to tell you how I'm approaching my content marketing to reach my goals. Like I want you to hold me accountable at the end of the quarter. I'm going to come back. I already made a note in my calendar to come back and share the results of this strategy so we can evaluate it together because it's very specific. I'm building this in real time. And the first thing, I wasn't sure if I wanted to share this, but I think it's important to know where my school of thought is coming from when it comes to content, because definitely it's very specific and it's very different, I would say, than a lot of advice that I see online. So the best I found to build a powerful content strategy is for anything messaging related, StoryBrand. I've been studying them for years. I've been using their methodology for my work for years. I have the dream of getting certified by them. And yes, I put it out there. I really, really love their framework for messaging. It is so simple. Then for overall strategy, Social Curator, it is a membership by Jasmine Star. She is a woman that I admire so much. She's a client of mine, and I've been a client of hers or a subscriber to her subscription. This is an app, a software company that helps you with social media to build your strategy using the power of AI in a way that feels authentic. They also have coaching opportunities, and it is great to build your strategy in a way that builds your business. That's very important because a lot of people can teach you how to grow on social media, but they don't necessarily teach it to you in the context of your business. Then for anything related to marketing operations, meaning how to put together the content calendar, how to translate ideas, how to prioritize different tactics in different seasons of your business. They call this the success path in different stages. I really recommend the Business Lounge. I had Chris, one of the co-founders, here on the podcast a little while ago. I'm going to leave his interview down below, but I really recommend them for how to structure your content machine in a way that's aligned with where you are in your business. And then for podcast strategy, I have the podcasting queen, which is she's Stephanie Gass. She's been my mentor for Podcast Launch. I've learned a lot from her. And again, I couldn't say that all my approach to podcasting is just from Stephanie, but definitely I have to give her, I have to give her an honorable mention in this resources list because she's wonderful. Her stuff is constantly being updated. She works with clients, so she knows what's working, and she's very easy to understand. So if you have a podcast, or especially if you want to launch a podcast, I would definitely recommend that you take the Clarify Your Calling course and then the Podcast Pro University. Those are her two core courses that I've taken, and they are really, really wonderful. And then my secret weapon, my husband. My husband is actually a wonderful social media expert. He's the director for social media for an airport, and he's had a really extensive career managing social media, and working with brands like Nike. I don't know if I can say the names of the brands. Okay, I'm going to just say Nike, and then I'll ask him if I can say the rest. But he has worked with really big brands as a photographer, as a content creator, as a director of social media for corporations such as the airport of this specific city. So he's really incredible when it comes to social media, and he's so simple. Like, that's why I love going to him for advice, because I have all these complex frameworks and strategies and systems, and he's just like, okay, this is what you need to do. So he helps me simplify things and focus on things that work. So when I actually started implementing his advice, my Instagram grew really fast. Like, he'd help me put into action all the knowledge I had. So I want to bring him on the podcast because I want you to get a very just straight to the point advice on social media. Okay. So these are my resources. Go check them out if you want to dive deeper in any specific area, messaging, your strategy, your operations, or podcasting, launch and growth advice. And of course, my husband, I don't know if he can help you on the DMs. I probably he would. But I'll get him on the podcast, okay? So for the actual strategy, I divided this in 3 different parts, okay? And then every part has 3 steps. So in total, we have 9 steps, but it's 3 steps per part. I hope it makes sense. So my first part is the goals. And for step 1, I want you to start with aligning with your business goals for the year. And this was a huge mistake I made early on. I wanted to make more sales, but because I didn't go through this process systematically, right? I just had an idea. I ended up buying so many different courses and focusing on tactics that were not aligned with the stage of business I was on, which is why it's so important to know where are you in your business, what's your focus right now, so you don't start diluting your effort, right? Technically, the best way to define what you want to accomplish is to set SMART goals, which is sustainable, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. But at first, I'm not a goal-setting expert, and I don't know why I don't like SMART goals. They just feel like this huge pressure. They get complicated to me, and it loses kind of the fun. So I have this framework in the back of my mind, but for me, this is not advice on goal setting, but I'm just going to share how I set my goals. I write down everything I want to do, and I don't have any specific framework. I just put generic things. It's a really huge list. And then I choose 3 things that I really want to focus on, and I go deeper, right? I ask questions to the statement so I can go deeper. For example, one of the things I said in my top things were that one of my goals was to grow my revenue. So then the question was, how much, right? What level of revenue do you want to reach? Another one was to grow the podcast. So the question is, how many downloads a month? So this is where I want to be by the end of the year. I want to have X amount of revenue, X amount of downloads with the podcast. And I was going to tell you my goals, but the thing is, I don't want you to set my goals as your benchmark because I don't know where you're at with your business. So I was going to share it, but I rather... there are so many variables. So that's why I'm not sharing the numbers. But those are 2 of my goals, growing the podcast and growing my revenue. And a note about goals, I have years of podcast production experience. So I know what a challenging but doable goal looks for me. Like I know how to challenge myself with a goal that seems scary, but something that it is not impossible in my mind. I have years in business. I have sold offers before. So I kind of know where I'm coming from and what I feel confident, scared, but confident that I can achieve. Then for step number 2 in this goal setting process is based on those things you want to achieve this year, write down your one thing for this quarter. And in my case, I'm focusing on launching and growing my new program from expert to leader. And everything I do this year in my business is going to be aligned with that one thing. I aligned this program with my podcast. So really growing the podcast goes hand in hand with growing the program because the program is just an extension of the podcast. Like everything we talk about on this podcast, we go and practice and take action and go to the next level in the program. So it is kind of the same avenue. So that's why it feels easy. It doesn't feel like I'm doing 2 different things. Everything is going to be with the goal of growing that program, the revenue coming from that specific program. All the podcasts I will pitch myself to, all the collaborations I will accept, everything will go back to that one main thing. And if you tend to be a distracted squirrel like me, having this one thing is going to be super, super helpful. And then for step number 3, I have my overall goals for the year, my one thing. I then write with big bold letters my goal for quarter 1. My goal is... I'm getting a little nervous here. I feel like I'm opening up my soul. Okay, my big goal for this quarter is to sell 5 beta testers for my one-on-one program from expert to leader. That's in my quarter. That's what I want to do. Sell 5 spots for this beta testing program that's going to be $1,000 discounted to be the first people to take this program, where I'm combining years of experience of working with big brands and putting them into something achievable for business owners, entrepreneurs who want to be just an expert, to being a leader, a go-to expert in the industry, increase their visibility, and be seen online. So that's my goal for this quarter, selling all these 5 spots. Then for the second part, we have the messaging. So now that we have our goal, I told you we have 3 parts with 3 steps each. So we are over the first part, the first 3 steps. And now we're going to the second part. That's the messaging. The first step is that I wrote a quick description or about section for this program. And this will allow me to go back and recenter my content throughout the quarter if I get overwhelmed or distracted. So literally the way you can do it, I don't want you to make it complicated because sometimes I used to waste a lot of time with the strategy and writing things down and journaling and never doing the work. So this strategy is useless if you don't take action. So I want to keep it super simple for you. So the way that you can write your about section about your program, your service, your one thing is what is the promise of this program or this service? What's one paragraph where you are briefly explaining the program, what it is about, and then the bullet points with the benefits. It's very simple. This is not a sales page. This is not anything fancy. This is with your own words as if you were talking to a friend over a glass of wine. Very simple, okay? Then for step 2, in this messaging part, I added some notes about my best client. And I included demographic information, so that's age, sex, occupation. I don't go extremely deep on this, but after years of working with entrepreneurs, I do have an understanding of where my best client is in terms of their demographics. But I also added some psychographic points. So that's their main motivations, and understanding your customer motivations is key. Their pain points, their desires, their social media habits. Again, keep in mind, I've been working with entrepreneurs, building their personal brand, their visibility for years. So I have clarity on this. But if you're not too sure about your people, you can do some market research. I don't want you to get lost in market research, though. I don't want you to say, oh, I'll do my strategy in March because I'm going to take January and February for market research. No, I want you to take a week or 2 at most for market research. If not, take an educated guess based on your experience so far. Probably you're not selling to someone that you have no idea who they are, okay? And this is a living and breathing document. You can revise it in the future. You can come back to it in April and maybe adapt or adjust or update some of this information based on what you've discovered after, getting out there and talking to people. And then for step number 3, we have the actual messaging. And I have a whole episode on messaging, and I will link it below in the show notes because I don't want to go too deep on this concept. But to summarize it is getting clear on the problem that you solve. The problem that you solve externally, meaning functionally, and internally, which is emotionally. How does that make them feel? What's the solution you provide, meaning what success looks like? What villain are you fighting? And I need to make an episode of the villain because that's an element of storytelling that you can incorporate to your messaging that will make it very, very strong. And it's saying, who are you fighting? So in my case, I'm fighting noise because there's so much noise on social media that people have a hard time standing out online. So I am against the noise. I like streamlined things, very clear, actionable, and let's adjust as we move forward. I really recommend that you have your villain here for this part. And also, what's your unique vehicle of transformation, right? You have your problem, you have your solution. How are you getting them there, right? What are you saying, enrolling them for? What's your movement? What are they going with this? That's why I have a whole episode on this because it's fascinating. I love it. I think it's my favorite thing we do with my program. So these sections, again, are very short for this messaging part because each section builds up to the next one. So, you don't have to feel like you are reinventing the wheel. And then for the third part, after you have your goals, your messaging, we are starting here to talk about content planning. Big mistake I did. I went straight into content and I didn't have my goals. I didn't have my messaging. So now we are going into content planning and we also have 3 steps. For step number 1 here in this third part, I start to get tactical with defining my platforms. And this is where I'll be focusing this quarter. For me, it's going to be my podcast and Instagram. A stretch for me would be to add the podcast episodes to a blog and YouTube shorts. Those are stretch goals. I don't want to make the goal right now because I have other things I'm doing. So I don't know if physically I'm going to have the time to invest in incorporating those platforms. I definitely want to do it this year, though. I don't know if it's going to happen this quarter. So those are tentative, right? I don't want to get distracted, which I've been known for before. Then step number 2, I know that my podcast is going to be my main platform. It's kind of my editorial place. You know how you have a magazine and they have their monthly theme, and then when you go to their social media, you kind of get the vibe of what they're talking about on the magazine. Of course, it doesn't work exactly that way because we don't have a monthly episode, but the leader of the content is really the podcast. So because I knew that, I defined my pillars and I did a whole episode, actually 2 episodes on my launch strategy. And on episode 1, I explained how I came up with my pillars and how you can do it for your own podcast if you're launching a podcast. So go and listen to that. So you define your pillars, and I don't recommend talking about anything and everything on your podcast. If you are using it as a leverage to grow your business, if you are in the stages of growing your personal brand and your credibility and recognition in your industry, I really recommend that you keep it very specific to your pillars. And in my case, I experimented a lot at the end of the year, last year actually, and I realized that this framework, that the one that I talked about in that launch strategy episode, is the one that works the best. So I'm going back to it. I don't even know why I decided to change, but again, it's fine. I was experimenting. Maybe I could have found something better, but I didn't. So I went back to my framework that works, and it's just incredible. One key tip, though, is that these pillars need to be in a very simple language so that your audience will understand. Because yes, it will depend on how sophisticated they are. If maybe you're talking to other industry professionals, maybe they're very, very comfortable with the terminology. Maybe you can get fancy. But for the most part, even me within my own industry, I appreciate it when, thought leaders and content creators, they keep it simple. I really appreciate it, right? I want your audience to feel very comfortable. And that starts with the way you name your pillars. So, for example, my 3 pillars are personal branding, because that's the foundation of helping my best audience stand out in the online space. So these will include conversations around clear messaging, storytelling, finding your voice, and more. Then I have content creation, because especially after all the experimentation I did at the end of last year, I came out even more confident about my method for creating content of value. And again, I need to give credit to the resources I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, because they've really shaped my views on content marketing. Specifically, my husband, he has helped me simplify content creation so much. And he has a very unique view that I have infused with my view that's a little bit more complex and strategic. So I think that the blend has helped me come up with a very cool and effective methodology. And my 3rd pillar is confidence and leadership, because standing out online is not only about a clear brand and incredible content. There is a huge piece of the puzzle that's you. Who you are as a leader, how confident you feel in your conviction, and doing the work you have to do to get the results you want to get. That's a 3rd piece of the puzzle, because, creating all this content, all this personal brand, if it doesn't come with you as a leader standing strong in your leadership, it's going to fall flat. It's going to maybe be successful for a month or 2, but it's not going to be sustainable. Sustainability comes from this confidence and leadership, and I want to help you build that this quarter, be very specific. So those are my 3 pillars. And then we have our 3rd step for this part of your content planning, and that is your content flow. So there are 2 types of content flows I recommend as you're growing your business and your brand as a leader in your industry. Long form content and short form content. So a flow for each of these. And I've talked about the differences and importance of long and short form content. So I'm going to leave a couple of episodes for you in the show notes so you can reference back in case you want to go deeper. But long form, in my case, is my podcast. So my flow, I'm doing something very cool this quarter. My flow includes how many times I'll post an episode, which is once a week, my podcast production routine, and generally just, in a simplified way, it goes from episode brainstorm, then I map the episodes, then I create the outline, I then record the episode, I edit it. Well, I don't edit it myself. I say it all the time, but I do have the best editing team in the industry, I believe. Then to show notes creation, then scheduling the episode and promoting the episode. Those are kind of the steps. And when I said I was doing something cool this quarter, it's because I want to get in a weekly themed cadence for production, meaning I want to take a week to plan and brainstorm my episodes, another week to outline them, another week to record, and then while my amazing editor works on the edits, I work on the show notes, I plan the promotion, etc. So I want to work with, making the whole month in advance. I would love to get to a 2-month in advance cadence. So basically, at the beginning of the month, I already have the next month ahead. I feel like that's going to help me a lot for vacation, Christmas, or just unexpected life circumstances. So, stay tuned for that. I'll report back for sure in April to see how this experiment worked. But then for short form content, I have my Instagram flow. And this is thanks to social curators. So total credit to them. It includes posting 4 times a week. That is the ideal, and that is a stretch for me. Making sure I have 1 planning session a week because I fell into the nasty habit of creating the day off. I want to have 1 planning session, 1 writing session for the captions, and another to create my graphics or the video. So those 3 main sessions. Well, and the scheduling session. But those are the 3 main ones. From there, once I have my cadence, right, I know what's going to be my plan for short form, for long form, I start getting into content mapping, planning then the specific podcast and Instagram posts. I have the things I have to talk about every month. So this month I'm being an ambassador for a program I'm very excited about and I cannot wait to share with you. So that's something I want to create podcast episodes for and reels for. So, mapping that out if I have, anniversary post, which I don't have coming up. But if I had an anniversary, my wedding anniversary coming up, I would know, okay, I have to write that for the following month. So I just know specific episodes or not episodes, but dates or things I want to promote. And then this part, the actual calendar is a little bit more flexible. Right? Because my actual strategy, my pillars, my messaging, that's my goals. That is set in stone for the next quarter. But the actual calendar, so when things are going out, that I'm going to be more flexible for sure. And a big mistake I see entrepreneurs making is that they change strategies too often. So they never have enough data to evaluate if the strategy actually worked. And I did this for a very long time because nothing worked. I started to doubt myself and my skills. So beware, if you keep changing your strategy, nothing's going to work. And then that's going to hit and affect your confidence. So stick with your main core strategy. And I know, by the way, that this is not the topic of this episode, but as an entrepreneur, something I've learned thanks to my coach, Judy Weber, is that you need to make a choice and stick to it. Like you need to learn to choose and stand in your choice. That doesn't mean that this will be my strategy forever, right? I'm giving myself 3 months and I'm going to evaluate at the beginning of April. But I am not shifting my focus or getting shiny object syndrome, okay? This is a big commitment for me. And if I can do it, I'm the woman with ADHD, the woman who loves learning, who loves trying new things. I told you I experimented with a bunch of different theories for content creation last year. Trust me, if I can do this, you can do this, okay? That's why I recommend building a strategy that you love. So in my case, even though my goals probably follow the SMART goal framework, I just don't like the SMART goal framework, so I don't use it because I don't like it. I mean, it's silly. I just don't like it. Even though I follow it, I just don't like it. And I wouldn't love the strategy if I saw the word SMART on top of my strategy. So the idea is not for you to get bored or frustrated after 5 posts or in 2 weeks, okay? So let's recap. I know I threw a lot at you. There are 3 parts to building a powerful content strategy, okay? Each part has 3 steps. First, define your goals. This includes your business goals for the year, your one thing for the year, and your specific big goal for the quarter to achieve the goal. And this is the quarter we're creating the strategy for. Second, clarify your messaging. This includes defining your service or offer in a short blurb so you know what you're focusing on, describing your ideal client, and refining the messaging itself. And third, plan your content. So this includes defining your platforms, defining your pillars, and defining your content flow. And remember, very important, stay committed to your choice. Let this be the year when you decide to commit to your content marketing strategy and give yourself the space to test and evaluate. You don't need to be panicky. You are in good hands. Once you work on your content strategy, please send me a checkmark emoji and I will know that we are holding each other accountable. Okay? I'm excited for you. Thank you for being here. Until next time, un beso. I hope you loved this episode. If you connected with the podcast in some way, please rate it and review it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That is the #1 way you can support the show. And because sharing is caring, share it with a fellow entrepreneur wanting to become a leader, not just a creator. I am so grateful for you. I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM over to @eugenia.woo. That's @EUGENIA.WOO. And if you only send me a microphone emoji, I will know that you stayed till the end. Thank you for listening. See you soon.